Hilchas Dalet Minim, there's three things which is major things. One is called choser, it's missing something. One is called, which does not go into the Geder of Choder, not Choder, it's something, it's a piece of Esther is missing, that's not because of Choder. It says, Lekachtem lechem b'yoyim harishon pri eitz Choder. So, Choder has to be, Lekachtem lechem b'yoyim harishon has to be, let's start 1 second before. Lekachtem lechem. Let's take this passage. Lekachtem lechem b'yoyim harishon pri eitz Choder. So the Torah says, you should take, Lekachtem lechem b'yoyim harishon. So, anything which is missing, you have a half an asrik. It has the shear, even the half asrik has the shear, or half a piece of the lulav which is broken. It is not a whole thing. That's a psil. Because the Torah says, Lekachtem lechem has to be a lekicha tama. Because al darshan, whenever it says in the Torah lekicha, has to be a whole thing. If it's not whole, it's a psil. But what does it say in the pasuk? Lekachtem lechem b'yoyim harishon. Only the first day. Then the pasuk says pri eitz Choder kapas temurim. So that means pri eitz Choder doesn't say b'yoyim harishon. So what do we take out of this? Anything which the psil is als Choder, it's also the whole 7 days of Sukkot. Because it's not Choder. Anything which goes into category of choser, which is the problem of it's not lekicha tama, it is only also the first day of Yom Tov. By us, which we have 2 days of Yom Tov, is a machlokes Rishonim. If the second day is like the first day or not, Al Rebbe Paskins, the second day is like the first days, then therefore you can take. If you don't have something else, you can take it, but you don't make a bracha. So by us, whenever I want to say something that it's mutter, the other days of Yom Tov, that means from Chalamoid, if invited. The first 2 days, we have to be machma. Anything which is psil als Huder, it's not a thing which has to do with 1 day, 2 days, it's all 7 days, because pri eitz Choder hat shayches mit 1 day or the second day. That's very important to know. Because we're going to come to a lot of halacha, which the problem will be choser, and we're going to see that Chalamoid is okay. What is considered Choder? The Torah gave her over Chazal that they should define the halachas. What's Choder? We have it also in Hilchos Yom Kippurim. Hilchos Yom Kippurim, we all know the Hayanim, which we are not allowed to do in Kippur, is Min Torah. But so how could we have all kind of kulas which we learn Shulchan Aruch? We see the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch, all kind of kulas which you could do if you go on the street about shoes. Steins with the Alter Rebbe over there, that although it's a daraisa, but the Rebbeinu Shalom, the Torah gave her over Chazal that they should define what is considered in when you are permitted, when you're not permitted. The same goes also in Hilchos Chalamoid. Hilchos Chalamoid, we all know, is machlokes Rishonim. If it's a daraisa or if it's a drabonan, and a lot of Rishonim say it's a daraisa. But so how could we do over all this kind of hatayim? How could we be Michael? The Teretz is the Torah gave her over to Chazal to define the Osir imiter. The same goes with the Dalet Minim. It is a Min Torah has to be Huder, but what is considered Huder? Chazal told us what it means. They define the halachas, what goes into the category of Choder and what not goes into the category of Huder. Zuk of the Paskel, it goes Ba'ayne B'nai Udam. That means what every Kehillah has what's by them it's Choder, that's Choder. For instance, some people, I think in Bobov, they'll do anything to have an esrog which has a nice gidl. They're gonna give away anything for the gidl, even though if it's dirty. So since in their place, Choder means the gidl, so that's Choder. Other places is Choder means has to be yellow. Some places has to be a gartel. Choder is defined by the people. I'm not talking with the Shichanur of Choder. I'm talking Bechlal Choder goes whatever by this community. That means Choder. So that is an inyan to emphasize that Nekida it should be Choder. It is an inyan to pay extra to have a nice lilav, a nice esrog. Yes, a kaile van vayi is an inyan that you should pay for a hider mitzvah. Shlish, aber se do as a mizach to pay, that means a bigger lilav. A bigger lilav is a hider mitzvah. Steigt interessant, a very interesting Mugnavrum, which is basically not over here in Chasikas, it is in Hilchos Chanukah, which the Mugnavrum says, Hilchos Chanukah, that if somebody puts in more oil than half an hour, it's not a hider mitzvah. The mitzvah is in the half an hour, you don't need to put in more than that. But if you buy a bigger candle, a nicer, bigger candle, that's Hider Mitzvah. And he says, K'moi Lilav Gudel. That means to buy a big Lilav, it's a Hider Mitzvah. So it's G'day when somebody goes to take a Lilav, one of the things you should see, it should be a nice big Lilav, a tall Lilav, which we're going to speak by Lilav. Another reason why we should be big, because there's another reasons too. But Akaponim and Hider Mitzvah, you are Indian that you should buy a nice one, a big one. It should be an Indian of Hider Mitzvah. Now, when you go to look at Esrik, I want to the Chavekshtel of two things. The first thing which a person should look is if he can. Again, if he can, he should take an Esrik with a pitam, even though he has another one which is much nicer and much cleaner and doesn't have a pitam. It is kedai to take one with a pitam. Everything is kosher even without a pitam, but it's kedai to take one with a pitam, and I'm going to explain it just in a minute. That's number one. Number two, it's kedai to take one esrik which is yellow over a esrik which has some kind of dot. It's kedai to take. Why? Let's explain it. The first of all, my good friends, let me tell you a secret. When you buy an esrik, you don't need to have a loop. You don't need to have a loop. And don't take a loop with you. What's a loop? A loop means a magnifying glass, which looks for all the tiny dots, which you don't need it. Number one. Number two, even if you don't go with a loop, you don't take an esrik and look like this if it has a dot. That's not the way how you look at it. It is, in the Postum Zugan, you take an esrik, and the Lush von Alderem is, that mit aufsehen the Unionen, the Pintlach, Bashkufer the Shoina, where a person takes an esrik. When a person looks on a thing, he takes it about like this, and this is how it looks. Anything which a person is going to look, is going to look at it. It's about 10 inches away from your eyes. You look at esrik this way, 10 inches away with your eyes. And if Bashkufer the Shoina, when you look at it, you don't want to see anything, it's kosher, lachol, hadayas, there's no problem. The first time, the Alter Rebbe said, why? Because once you saw already the black dot, or whatever it is, then you're going to find it the second time too. Your eye is going to look for it and it's going to find it. But we don't look at this way. When we look at esrik, we pick up an esrik, and you give a look at it 10 inches away from your eyes, and you don't see anything, it's clean, it's a huder, and
even if later you find things.
Even if later you're going to find it, there's no problem. Because you have to see it like this, that's considered huder. Huder means it has to stuff right in the Augen when you pick it up and look at it. So now, and all the poskim have, there's no machlokas in it. So now, when you go to take esrik like this, and you don't see anything on it, it's kosher haladas. But when you go to take esrik, which is green, or even a little bit green on top, which is going to go in a minute what it means, or what our pitam, the sach poskim is halt as it's nicht kosher. Although we don't take that halacha lemaisa, we don't go with that halacha, but some kesaf has to shoinam or achroinam, which hold it's not kosher, and over here it's nicht kosher, and do after esrik, which is the haladah is kosher. So therefore, when you're going to pick, you buy something which is kosher haladah. Now let's start the first thing with the Indian of green. The Indian of green is like this. Shechanor steigt a esrik which is green, ki eis is vayuretz is possible. That's called Yurik Karsi. That means it has to be green like grass. Real green, which you can see a lot of stuff. You can see a slogan which is real green. It is possible. Why is the reason? What's the reason why a green esrik is nicht kosher? Is do the reason is because it is not a right esrik. It's boiser, an esrik which is called boiser, it's not right, and an esrik which is not right is nicht kosher. Kimt os, or I'm going to leave it after a while, after a week or 2 or 3, and it's going to become ripe. Therefore, is a schon kosher. Weil das ist nicht pshat as is boiser. Boiser is pshat, we took it off, and it's unripe food, and it's not going to become ripe. If it's going to become ripe down the road, it's a certain kushal after when it's green. So therefore, according to this pshat, if you have an esrik, which is basically green, we don't have a problem halacha. Why? Even if it's izvaya suda, because the only problem is it's not ripe, and usually when you leave it a while, it's going to become yellow, so therefore, it's not a problem. kipped over the Bach, and the Bach says the problem is not because it's boiser, it's unripe fruit. The problem is it's shinimara. We know an esrog which has on the esrog dots which is on other color. That means if it's white, if it's black, that means shinimara. Then if it's from the half, you have an esrog. It comes. Mechoit melamala means when it starts going to get narrower. Any dot which you can see with your eyes, it's black or white, that's called shinimara. So the Bach, green is also shinimara. Gray is a problem. Hallochet ach b'shefrei naruf. Brown can Michael sein. Aber akapunim, black and white is possible, even a tiny dot, if you can see with the eye, 10 inches. Again, we have to have this in mind. So the Bach, shinimara is possible. The green esrog is also shinimara. So what happens with this? Even if it's going to become ripe, and even if it's going to become yellow, now it's a shinimara. And that's even bigger problem. Shinimara and mechoit melamala is even a tiny drop. That means if you have a whole yellow esrog, and on top it's yurike karsi, no, the Bach is nicht kosher. Now again, as I mentioned before, we don't take the Bach la'aluch la'maisa. We take the tam, Alter brings it down, the tam is als boiser, so therefore we have no problem. But it's still a Bach. A Bach is a Bach. We rely on the Bach. When it comes to Chodesh and Yoshin, the whole heter of the Chassidim is because we have a Bach. So over here we have a Bach, even though we don't pass them like this. But when you have an esrog, which is basically clean, according to all the Boston, which you don't see anything 10 inches away, and you have an esrog which is green, even a little bit green, that means a tiny place which is green, you have a problem with the Bach. So why shouldn't you take an esrog which is kosher chaladais? But that means only yurike karsi means real green. If it's our green, which a lot of esrogs like this is like keshava, that's not that's the reason, that's the regular color esrog. It doesn't have to be yellow. Light green is also fine. Lanias dati, I feel, this is my own hashura, one of the reasons why in Manuki Chabad Shtayt it should be Yurik Keshava. By the way, Shava is this color. The Shava which we buy, that means the wax which we buy, the licht wax which we buy has coloring. Yeah, the Matya sharing has coloring. And whatever you look has coloring. The wax is colored, it should be a nice yellow. If you see a real wax, this is the color of our esrog. So that's no problem. And why Pashtus Havusa the Alter Rebbe that Manuki Chabad Gevolt, it should be this kind. Why didn't say you should take a yellow esrog? There's a lot of yellow esrogim. The answer is because there's a Zohar Kudish. The Zohar says that you should have an esrog which is green. Now the other people which take green esrogs, they learn that the Zohar means green. But it cannot be. The Zohar does not dings with the Shekhanor. The Zohar does not deal with the Shekhanor. The Shekhanor Shtayt Yurgi Kan is possible. So therefore, it does not mean this. The Zohar says it should be greenish. So therefore, when we take an esrog, it should be greenish. But if it's really green like grass, even if a tiny place holds the Bach is possible. So therefore, when you have to kind of destroy them, don't take an esrog even has a tiny drop, which is real green. That's the number one. The second one we go about the pitams, which we mentioned. Again, pitams without pitams is kosher. Let me make it clear. The same as I mentioned before, we hold a green esrog, even kekarsi is kosher. The same is also without a pitam it's kosher. But in matter of fact, some years the Rebbe had an esrog which did not have a pitam. So let's make it clear when we talk about kashrus, it's kosher. But when we have to astroid one which has dots, when you're gonna look like your eyes will be the loop. And you're going to find dots, but when you look like this, you're not going to find anything, which is kush l'chaladayis, and you have an esrog which doesn't have a pitam, take one which is not so clean with a pitam. Why? And the Rabu Shtayt Azoy. The Rabu says that an esrog which the pitam fell off, Pashtus is a problem. Why was the problem? It's a chuser. Sachuser, by the way, the Alter Rebbe says, noch mehr, it's not only chuser, it's auch the problem als ude. Because everything which has to do with the top of the esrog, since the eye, the eye looks on something, it looks right on the top, so if the pitam falls down, it is not only a problem of ude, it's a problem of, not only of chuser, it's a problem of the ude. But, the Alter Rebbe says, what does it mean that the pit, there's a couple of shittas that are showing what it means that the pitum fell off, and the Alter Rebbe passes what does it mean it fell off? It fell off and there is a hole inside. If there isn't a hole, and most of the pitums which you're going to look is going to see, it's like flat, and has a piece of pitum, the wood, a piece of the dot is still outside. So the Alter Rebbe is kusher like it. He says, the Alter Rebbe writes, which is marvelous, people don't even know. The Alter Rebbe says, if you have two asroigim, one is basically, has no pitum, it fell off the pitum, but it still has this piece of wood. Yeah? And it's not, and it's not so clean. And you have another one which basically has a pitum and is, has one which is fell off the pitum but has the wood and it's clean. And you have another one which has a pitum and it's not so clean. Not so clean means haluchadik. So the Alter Rebbe take without the pitum. Azoiva, because Alter Rebbe halt, if it fell off the pitum, that means the atura, the top of it, and the piece. Now pitum has two pieces. There's one, it's like mushroom. They have the feet of the mushroom, and then you have the mushroom itself. If it fell off the top, the shashanta which fell off, so the Alter Rebbe, so and therefore, if it's covered all the way, you could use it if you don't have something which is much more nicer. So b'mayla haluchadik v'manishkam pravna. Because why again? Because the obviously is gebot. The Remu zukt a pitam. Okay, so if it has the piece of wood, the challah dies, but it pashtus is good. But let me go a step further. Some asteroigim, not some, a lot of asteroigim has a hole on top. Now, a lot of people are makbet to take an asteroid which does not have a pitam. If they take something which doesn't have a pitam, they are makbet to take which has a hole. This is when I was brought up and I was looking for asteroigim. The Yunus is the cloud. That was the cloud which we knew. If it has a hole, that means it fell off way beginning. If it doesn't have a hole, that means maybe it fell off after it was cut off, and therefore don't take it. But the Amazon is it goes the opposite. If it's like that, if it's straight, according to the Alter Rebbe, make machem adem abrucha lekitchila, so there's no problem. If it has a hole, don't have such no problem. It's a problem for chuser. So how could people take it? So it starts with the Remu. The Remu says that if you have pitums, if you have trees, you have a pardas, which you have the asroigim, do not grow with pitums, it is kosher because heiner beside. That's the way how it grows. That's the thing which the Remu says. But pashtus we learn, since that's the way how it happens, that on a tree, some asroigim lose their pitums when they grow. Some asteroigim, some trees do have, some trees. So therefore, that's a normal thing in Sekusher. Do something ungenehm a Shia'ur Pepshat. A couple of years ago, 25 years ago, 30 years ago, even more, the Mai Branze for the Knai Boysam woke up and he writes a whole chiv and says, Michael Tyson, the Remu says that you have a pardas, the trees, which this tree does not give out a sroig which has a pitam, heiner bisaya. So, but our trees, on the tree there's a lot of sroig which have pitams, a lot of them which doesn't have pitams. My chetai is that this goes into the heter of the Remu. And he passes any esrik, which basically the pitam fell off. If on that pardas or on that tree you have a sroigim which have pitams, it's not kosher. And it was a whole balagan. Rav Wozner stepped in and says, I have a limit chis to, a limit chis. He accepted the error, but he says, I have a limit chis. What is this limit chis? He says, every fruit, we go into a pardas, all the fruit grow with all kinds of shmits. And it falls over Meshach Dazman, it falls over basically when it grows. So the Rav Wozner, you think that this pitum is a pitum and it fell off. That's part of the shmitz which was on the fruits. There's other shmitz too. Don't consider it as a pitum. Consider it as a shmitz and fell off. It never grew with a pitum. And as I said, he wants to learn schis on Chal. So you see, it's not that simple. So we have over here an esrik, which basically has a hole. That means it is for sure fell off. It has a hole. So then you're going in, hostage the Hefet Alter. And you have my Branzefor, you have Ravos, and you have a lot of other poskim which accepted the error of Ramaya. And he builds it on friedige Poskim. It's not he came from the blue moon. It is gebot of friedige Poskim. So, noch einmal, again, Klal Yisrael is the poistic achna. We know that. When Klal Yisrael took something and passed like that, that's the halacha. Make your mais branzafer, make rabos, make all the poskim say against it. Klal Yisrael gepasst. But you have an esrig which could have a pitta. And it's clean according as I mentioned before. And you could buy a esrig which is much more nicer but doesn't have a pitta. Why shouldn't you take one that have a pitta and go away with the problem?
Why not go over the pitta? One that has a half of it fell off is also
one of them which fell off, half of them, because we have the alter ego. Correct. That's right. But if you take one which has a hole, then you're going into problems. So therefore, if you can take the first thing is the thing, stay away with one which has a hole. The second of all, the first thing is
stay away from the hole.
If it has the hole, stay away from it. If you want to take one which, for instance, there are some years which you don't have enough esrogim with pittams, so at least take one which does not have a pitta but doesn't have a hole. Verkehrt with the ganze Welt. Favos, because when you have a hole, you have the problem of nur von a pitta, boy from is a problem, as a chusa. If you don't have a hole, sof kol sof, is with the alter Rebbe, also you pack in the luchas, das heißt noch von a pitta, but the alter Rebbe says, noch von a pitta means if it cracks that way, not this way, that way, and it came out a piece of the wood, so you have over here a hole. So since, if it's cracked this way, how many is the alter Rebbe? So if you don't want to take one with a pitta, so they take this kind of stuff. But akapurim, when you go to buy an esrog, and you have the option, again, as I mentioned before, green with a pitta, but one which is not so clean when you go with a loop or with when you take it to your eyes, and you have one which has the other problems, it's always kedai according to all the poskim. If you don't see it when you see like this, then it's kosher. Let me make it clear. Green, we pass this kosher. Without a pit in the kosher, but it's only what's your priority if you want to be yoitzis is a mitzvah. The poskim zoom is a mitzvah. It's a chvivitz once a year. So that's why it's kedai to go priority to make this in order to be clear on other things. Okay.
The way the Alter Rebbe explains Nafla Pitim is an accepted.
It's a machlokes for Shoyim. In Hilchas Dalet Minim, on jede halucha we do this. All kind of machlokes for Shoyim. There's a lot of Shoyim chlal of Dalet Minim. A lot of Shoyim. The Rav made a whole sefer of Dalet Minim. The Alter Rebbe goes. I would say a lot of poskim go with Alter Rebbe. Not all of them. No, not all of them. No.
The Knei Moisim goes with the other Rishonim that say Nafla Pitim is inside it.
If it has a hole, like a pool.
I'm saying if it has a hole, I'm saying if it doesn't have a hole.
I don't know if
that's where you would argue with Alter.
That's where you thought that's it. Yeah. Correct. So that's why I'm saying if you don't want to take one with a pitum, at least take one which basically has doesn't have any holes. It's covered with the wood, so then you're safe according to the Alter Rebbe. Okay, the second thing is we have to know it like this. When you have black dot, which you do see when you pick it up over here, you have a black dot or a white dot. Now, if it's mechoit me lamatu, that means the 2/3 lamatu. So over there, one is okay. If you have it's no problem. If you have 2 or 3, then you have a problem.
This is all Bashkav Hashem also.
This is the cloud which you have to take in front of your eyes when you go into Ephraim Keller to his garage. Anything which I don't see the Shkuf Rashoina is Mesider. I'm talking already when you take it like this and you see bumps like that. So why do I say 2, 3? Well, in the Telezuvah asks already why Shnaim Shel Shulosh. They say it has to be 2, but it has to be spaced away like 3. So you're not going to take anything which is so big. But in any case, if you have any black or white dot which is Mechoit Melamatu, you could, then 1 is fine. If you have 2, then you should, if you can stay away. If not, you ask it off. If it's Mechoit Melamalu, that means when it gets shorter on top, then is a problem even 1. If you see it right away when you pick it up, then you have a problem. So therefore, when you go to look for esrig, and you can see the first section it shines out, if it's mechoyt melamal, it's a problem. It's not a problem, it's possible. If it's black, as I mentioned before, white, black, gray, it's a problem of shinimare. It's a problem of shinimare.
And the bottom should also be just one.
No, it's a just like mechoyt melamal is the one. In lamatu guys it's shnaim shanal.
It's still a shinimare.
No, but shinimare in lamatu is nor two. There's a like mechoyt melamal shinimare one. Mechoyt melamal is two. But lamatu mamash, when it's mamash and the flat surface is what Aishla room, but Chuchu is able to talk. Might could be more lenient because nobody sees it over there. So he goes in to that piece, and a lot. Forget another thing you have to know. Most of the time, I won't say, but a lot of times, it's not a black shinimara. It's pushed as schmutz, and if a schmutz is a problem. Shinimara means the esrog itself has a black dot or a white dot. So therefore, that means shinimara. When it comes to Blattflecken, that's already much more easier because Blattflecken steht in der Mu, Heiner Visaya. Again, if it's Mechoyt Melamalu, you have to see how big and how, then go show it for a roof. Because Situli, if it's bumpier, then you have a problem. If it's not bumpier, Halda Marilla, Asnishka problem. So therefore, Blattflecken, most of the Blattflecken which we have is a tiny line, so that's no problem. But what I'm talking about, which you should ask it off, is when you have a nice big piece, white piece, a Blattfleck, which it's skimt a rosé stark from the oig. It shines out very, very strong, and it's big, so then you can ask it off. But again, if you don't see it, and even if you see the Blattfleck, if you see tiny lines, white lines, that's the Blattfleck that the Rambam says it's okay, and you don't have to be concerned. The third thing, another thing which I wanted to mention is esrog, which is not too much nagaya. Esrog, which nobody has Yuvish in the Sroigum, we have it in the Luluk, not in Sroigum, but I just want to bring out a very nice anecdote which I had. I was once in Israel, in Shalaim, and I met Rabbi Moshe Baranzler. He's the son of the Mai Baranzler. So, he told me a very interesting story. He tells me like this: Shechanor Shtayt Esrig HaYuvish is possible. So the Alter Rebbe, Esrig HaInish, the Alter Rebbe explains you how to check it out if it's Yovash. You take a needle, you put it in a string. Nobody's going to do it, and nobody should do it because you can kill the esrig. Halachadik. That's what the Alter Rebbe says. If you have an esrig which you basically used last year, so you should not use it this year. It's for sure Yovash. That's what the Alter Rebbe. So he tells me a story like this: the Toldos of the Mitzvah Rebbe had some kind of Williamsburg Gorir. Bought him a nice, beautiful esrig, which probably for $1,000. A really beautiful esrig. They bought it in the present for him. Mama Shayoifi, Anuki Mikol, half of a failure. And he put it away. And comes Yontav, Yontav, he wants to take out, the little esrig, see it again before Yontav. He doesn't see his esrig. He looks around the whole house, doesn't see his esrig. So after, looking around and he didn't find it, he went to purchase the esrig. Sure. Came a year later, and for some, what reason, I don't know, he opened the safe, take out some, it's probably the Ergim keeper wanted to give tzedukah, so take out some cash from the safe. And he finds that his esrig is in the safe. He was so happy with his esrig, he put it into the safe. He never used it, and it was over there, lying in the safe. And takes it out, beautiful, nice esrig. He wanted to use it for the esrig. Then says, maybe esrig ayuvish. Last year, he went over to the Mai Baranzler. He was his place. He said, Ramai, what do I do? Can I use it? Can I not use it? He says, give me a day. Let me think. No. First of all, we learn from this that a robe does not have to answer you. COD. Give me time. Let me think it over. By the way, Paamanã Mugurum says that a robe which passes a shaila, which he doesn't have once in 30 days, he should not pass before he looks into the sword. So if you go to any robe and he says, let me think it over, let me look and call me back, that's a robe, and he goes according to the Buddha. So Buddha Ramai tells him, let me think it. He comes back next day and says, you could use it. Use it. So the policy says that Shechanor Shtayt, the esrig, we know Ramai was a Talmud of Rabbi Mehersh. Rabbi Mehersh Kohen. So he was medayik in Alter Rebbe like mamash ka'achet Rishonim. We see in his Surim, mamash is beautiful to see how my brother is medayik in Alter Rebbe everywhere. So he's medayik Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe writes, Esrik she used the Esrik which she used last year. Don't say Esrik which she got off from the trees last year. He says the Esrik which you used last year, you shouldn't use it this year. But if you didn't use it, you can use it. Now, you can ask the rationality, very personal rationality. When you use it, your hands, every hand gives out all kinds of chemicals, all kinds of liquids. And that, once, mishpashidayim, all the sachrim know what we touch an Esrik a lot of times, it gets but you even never touched it, you can use it. And it says you can use it. The Alter Rebbe says the Esrik which, the Alter Rebbe doesn't say Esrik from last year, the Alter Rebbe says the Esrik which you used last year, so therefore, he was mad at him to use it. So, das Ashayne Diek, it's a very nice story which he told me that I wanted to give it over. Lamas is not the guy, because nobody is going to buy an Esrik from last year, even if he can use it. Okay, so let's go now to the next thing. Go in a little bit to Hilchos Leila, which is also very important. And so again, to sum it up, when you go into the Esrik Soiche, if you don't have an Esrik yet, if you can have it a pitam, it's the best thing if you can do. If you can't have, you take one which has the holes in the Shpekzicharos. If you can have one which has no greenish on it, the real green, that's what we're going to gewaltige. If you can have, again, Pi Aruch is kusher. When you have whatever you want, whatever you found, and you like it, and you look at it from over here and you don't see anything, it's kusher, like Chille, in Beit, in Batzul, Gel, and the handel zal nog een ook maken panusa, it's kusher, like Chille.
The Seicher had not a feed the news, and that was
the feed the taxi.
The
news looked the taxi. Okay, so Dina Lila. Over here is it?
Like all your years you went without a pitom. So you have to take the Madaneta.
The what?
If you had for many years you went without a pitom.
No, you don't have to be Madaneta. You didn't take it for a chimmer Yisrael. You forget, you're not Mike, but to do you can take a chimmer to have it with a pitom. Forget. Now if you want to start take with a pitom, say Belined. Because if 1 year you're not going to find one, so you don't need to take that. Okay, the next thing will be, another one thing which I want to mention, which is not that much the guy for Yana, but it's the guy for Esrik is rule. Esrik has a sheet, has to be kebaitza. Now you can ask every Esrik has a kebaitza, not really, and even really, but the Israeli Esrogim, when it comes before Yom Tov, before they cut it off, they cut it down. They put a lot of water because they want it to grow. So what happens? Goes through a couple of days, it starts shrinking. I remember myself, when I used to live in Tzisol, I bought an Esrik over there, and over there you cannot buy a Yan Esrog only which you schwärz in. So I bought an Israeli Esrik, and it came with me Yom Tov and shrank almost to the sheet of less than kebaitza and had a shal. If it's going to shrink less than kebaitza, it's possible even when it's kebaitza also is a shkusha. Because Esrik has to be a rule of Shiva. So we have to make sure to take a nice size Esrik that when it shrinks, if it shrinks, Yanabe don't have this problem, but it's a rule that Yisraelim have this problem. When it shrinks, it should be at least kebaitza.
The size or weight?
No. The size is like not the weight, not such as weight. For us, it's also by Ashkenazim. Everything a kebaitza, when we say Paisach, you have to use kebaitza size. It goes, you take an egg, you fill up the cup with water, you put in the egg inside, and the water which comes out, that is considered kebaitza. Now we go now to what is kebaitza. The skatnia baitza, nicht the skatnia baitza, what we make with the rices, with the bigger sheet, okay? But a kapunam, it could shrink very to very tiny, so then it's going to be a problem all 7 days. So therefore, take one which has a nice sheet. The same thing is go with Lilith. A Lilith has to have a sheet. The minimum sheet is Dalat Fuchim, which is basically, according to Chaim Noah, like 12 and a half, 13 inches. If you want to go to Chazanish, it's about 15 and a half, 16. Has to be for Tfuchim. The Shedra, not the Alam, the Shedra, that means only the middle of the piece, that has to be Dalat Fuchim. So therefore, you have to make sure it should be a nice size in Bechral. There's another 50 halacha. I'm going to start with the last thing which we have to say, but I'm going to start with it. which is a thing which people don't realize. Now the Rebbe Zuk, das ist Boost, das ist in Shoyz of Hiller. The estig, the shedra of the estig has to be, you're right, the shedra of the lulav has to be a tefach higher than hadasim and the lulus. Has to be. Nowadays that we have hadasim and arubas, nice, big, long, high, tall hadasim and arubas, and people, they pay, $8-10 for hadasim and arubas. The house lot is to cut it down. So what happens? You take the whole thing, a nice big nice arubas and hadasim. So what happens? It is even taller than the shedra. Shedra from the lila. And there's a problem. When the shiur is up in there. Look, so poskim, it's a problem.
Where does the shedra stop exactly though?
The shedra stops
as soon as it splits. Sometimes it comes out though even from the bottom. You can see things coming out.
That's a good. You take the middle, the shedra, and you go till where it starts going up over here. The shedra goes. If I don't have a little bit, if you have a little, the shedra, the hard part, it goes all the way till it starts to divide. When it starts to divide over here, that's the shedra.
This will be till the leaves start growing on the side.
What? No, the leaves can go even in the side from below.
Stop sprouting out.
No, you take the shedra. When it starts splitting, you go in the middle. When the middle of the shedra, the middle of the shedra. When it starts, when you see where it comes, let me show how a little bit works. And it's in the guy for the look. A little has a lot of letter, but in the middle the shedra has 3 leaves. This is how it works. 3 leaves. The middle, the shedra will go all the way. This will be the middle and has 2 sides. And then there's all kind of blätter. Like when the shedra goes and over here it splits, it becomes 3. Till here is the shedra. From here to Malamalu is nicht shedra. So it has to be higher, a tefach higher than the shedra. So therefore, when you have a big, the lilith has to be shedra of the lilith has to be a tefach hechter than das arubas. So if you have long das arubas, you have to cut it, but don't cut it on top, because then it's possible. You laugh. I had a shiloh one. Somebody cut it off because it was too high. And I said, I told him that, but the shiur said that you have to cut it off. Because this is his problem. So he came, it should be cut off, but he cut off on top. So then it's possible. You cut off at the bottom, and you make sure there should be a tefach hechem manal. Why it has to be? Because it has to be kiskis ha'alam. Kiskis has to be, when we shock the little it has to make noise. So therefore, if it's very high, it doesn't make any noise. By the way, as we're going to speak a little bit later, when you take a little which has kara, which we Chabad have Mike would have kara, so at least open the sides. The moch, kara means moch, Kara. That's how it calls in Yiddish. Kara and you write moch. So then you should open in the sides. Why should you open the sides? It has to make some kind of noise. If it's like a broom, then there's a problem. Kiskes allem frata pikabul is gura große Sach. Also mach kiskes. Aber viel apialuche has to make kiskes. So therefore, a man told me once a very interesting story. He went into the Wild Cats to show his Lilith. The first thing that Wild Cats did, he opened the sides and then he started looking at the Lilith. So he asks me, I don't understand. If he wants to open the top of the car, he wants to look at the asking if it's closed. I understand. Why did he open the sides? Doesn't make sense to me. So I told him that's why. He opened it that at least you have an idea. He doesn't want to open the car. The car is kushel ketchila. Fakir, some shit is a good idea. So therefore, he only wanted to be kissed, so that's why he opened it on the side. So therefore, we actually have to realize a lot of people like to have a nice moch, but at least it should be open. It should make some kind of noise. Okay, so now let's go back to the halacha, which is important. A little, as I mentioned, has three leaves, which is basically the middle of the lila. In Shechanura steht, it's Paamanã Abraham is showing what's called tiyimas. In Shechanura steht, if the tiyimas are opened, then it's possible. Nifsek tiyimas, it's possible. What is a tiyimas? It's according to a lot of Rishonim, tiyimas means every lilaf has to have a shituf. Has to be two. Every leaf is two. When you make kaishelach, you open it up, you make a kaishelach. Every lilith is the way how it grows. It is connected. One side is closed, one side is open. It's according to the Rishonim, in order that a lilith should be possible if it's opened, it is only if most of the leaves of the lilith is open, then it's possible. And that's the way how the Bisyos of the Machava Paskins, if it's not opened most of the Letlach, it's kosher. And that's a Machayat, the Asfardi, even in the time when we had the Egyptian Seroigim, which Leluvim there was a nightmare to find a kosher Leluv, they had one easy thing. Because the Machava Paskins, in order to be possible, has to be, most of the leaves has to be open. The Remu Paskins with their Rishonim, what? That Nechliki Atiyimas means Tiyimas is not called all of the letter. Tiyimas means only the middle. Everything goes according to the middle. So therefore, if the middle leaf is open, Nechliki, if it's opened, so then it's possible. We don't look on other things. If it's all, most of the other leaves and this one is closed, it's also possible. So it's nicht beschadet, dass man nimmt the andere Schoinen, but man macht man noch mehr, that even if the single middle lilith blättel is open, it's possible. How much is it has to be open, it should be possible? So the Alter Rebbe, nifse kiloi, all the way till the Shedra. If it's not open till the Shedra, it's not possible. The Gru is with Rebbe kiloi, Rav, okay, nicht gefährlich. Nobody, you know, when you're going to come to that issue itself, we are on the safe side. But if it's open, the drop, the aluche, it's kosher. Now what's then? The Mugam Rum Zuk, mitzvah min amifche, to take one which is closed fully. The Tirezuk Zuk, the afile the mitzvah min amifche means only a tefech, but the Pashtus Mugam Rum, as if I dal Tareb Merup, mitzvah min amifche, it should be closed fully, ganz hamach. So over here, we're going into this Indian of the hardness to getting a lilith. Now again, kosher is even if it's open till the bottom. If it's open till the bottom, it's already a problem, but till the bottom, you have anything. Till the shedre, then it's still kosher. Alles war mit von einer Milch, the monobrum passen, in the andere bringt es up. So therefore, that's the Indian of all the Klal Yisrael Machmer to have an esrog which is fully closed. Fully closed. And that's not easy to have. Baruch Hashem, now we have the Deri Leluvim, it's a Machaya. Most of them is Pashtus closed. You can still find open ones.
Fake, they say that the whole Deri Leluvim is a strain of the words.
No strain. It's the way how they grow. But, by the way, by Mamar Mizge, even when you had the Esroigim of the Egyptian Esroigim, the Leluvim, the Egyptian Leluvim, is if you found one which is closed and you're afraid it's going to open, like I Paskin, you have no problem to put in a little tiny drop of glue on top, because you cannot glue it back. You cannot glue it. But if it's closed, if it's manizes, it's a problem. But it's not the guy. Again, because today's day, Baruch Hashem, most of them kind of like arguing are there in Luvim. They do all kind of methods how they grow it. As is a stark to say, in Baruch Hashem, say gewaltige mal. Now the der in Luvim is dik, hoyach, so shines of alle minimals. But you can still have, if it might be if it's open. So then, mitzvah mifchi shouldn't do it. So there, over here comes in the chimra was the Chabad had, but mach. You have mach, so it's closed. So some people which don't want to take mach says that it's not for mach, it's not for mach with kola. It's not for mach only with mach. So that's a little bit has mach. That's it's a problem. A little has a black and one thing is a mach. Mach is no problem. So there's no problem to take mach. The only problem which they say is the problem we have mach is sometime in the middle of Yom Tov might fall off the mach. So therefore, then it's open, then you have a problem. Now usually when is going to happen this? This is going to happen usually Chalamoid. Yeah, usually when the fire is to commit Una Hashem Mishinu, I think 3 takes, a fire,
Sorry.
then you have this problem. The Alter Rebbe sucht, when it's opened, is a chesuren of chuser. It's a chesuren of chuder. If it's a chesuren of chuser, it is only possible the first 2 days. Chalamoid is already no problem. So Mamunah Shechvidi Shtais,
Ist man nicht mit einem Mund auf der Chalamoid?
auch ich mit mir verrocht. Nein, weil die Mitzvah mit dem Mifcharas ist a Ding chuser. Aber es ist nicht kein chuser, ich kann mich nicht. So therefore, never eins gemacht. Noch mehr, even further. Most of the times, even when it falls down the car, the mach, it is only the hard pieces. Between the 2 blätter is going to stay. Which I see constantly. So therefore, it's like all the Gemalas never mach. There's another reason why to take mach. Mama, if we talk, then I'm going to say, was is, du am Toises in Bavakama, bringt up, from the Goinen, that some Goyim hold that the Tiyima has to be mechiber to the other 2 Tiyimas. It has to be mechiber to the other 2 Tiyimas. So Machlokes are Goyim Gifa. Sees in mind as the middle one has to be connected to the 2 sides. Or only when you have 2 Tiyimas, there's something which is called Shnai Tiyimas. A lot of times you have a little which you have 2 Tiyimas, everything is exactly the same on top. That's 2 Tiyimas, but that's Bechal Kedai to take away, because then you have to have both Laluvim, both blätter has to be closed. But then the two Tiyimas has to be connected. Others are going to say that not only that, nor that when you have only 1 Tiyima, which most of Ayalus have 1 Tiyima, has to be connected to 2 sides, which most of the Luvim doesn't have. Now again, we don't pass with this Goyim. Obviously, for the Goyim, Toys bring to the Goyim. If you have a lila which has moch, we're talking now about the rices, so we have to understand when I keep on saying, we talk about Issa the rices, Mitzvah the rices. When you talk about the Rabbunans, kannst du in so einer Klau, so viel der Reis in der Chivra, so viel der Rabbuna Killer. But a Mikey with the Vam, do that in the rices. So if you can always do something which you have, another shittas that are showing you, as is all on Kush, it's a gewaltige Mann. So if you take one which has the Kara, was the Yoitzige and Oche, the toys which are going on, has to be connected, and then it's connected. So that's not a reason to make Kara. So therefore, Baruch Hashem, as most of the world do not take Kara, so we have a lot of, the options are very good. Okay, that's number 1. Now let's go to the next step. Azachus is very constantly could be, it's called Yuvish. Sometimes you have a little which is Yuvish. It's dried off. Now, dried off, again, according to the Shechalurach, or has to be most of the Luvim blätter has to be dried, or the middle has to be dried, and then it's going to be possible. In fact, we pass and everything goes about the middle blätter, so if the middle blätter itself is dry, then it's possible. What does it mean dry, by the way? Is do, but alle dalat minen, omens machloikis, wus heißt dry. Some person say, even if it gets white, you can see it's whitish, that's Yuvash. And some person say, in order it should become possible, it has to be nifrach kitzapoyim. You have to touch it, and it will dissolve. But the other parts, but other dalamina is do nach poskem with Michael. But the lilaf, if it gets white, then the Alter Rebbe should have a So in that account, as long as you can find it constantly, you have an esrik which has, you have a lilaf which it is dried. If the middle is dry, it's possible. If most of the blätter are dried, it's possible, which you're not going to take in any case. But I'm going to just give you an isotope. If you have on the side a blätter which is possible, which is dried, or you take it off. You can take it off because it has the shear. Because once you have one blätter which starts to get dry, most of the lid is going to be kaput in no time. So or take it off, or don't take such a lid. Aber aluchadik is a skusher. When it's dry, the top, sometimes you have the top is dry, that means the middle blätter, the top is dry, is ochpus. So therefore, do keep around the complications that you have to make sure, if you buy one, usually when you have kara, there's no such thing as dry, it's not geschmack, but if you don't have kara, you have found a little which is somach, you have to make sure it's namazhan yuvish. Now, sometimes you have on the lila, on top, you have some kind of, it's like burned, looks like burned. So the posting, that's not considered yuvish. Says the zin, basically, the table from the zin is, when it shines and fruits, it gets ripe, gets sweet. The look most it changes the color. So the mind is as if it's black on top, the brisket there, you're machmer them, but most person go that if you take the top, it's brown, you don't have to be concerned because that's not Jewish. But once you have this thing, you shouldn't take it also because another reason. Now, it's kosher, but if you're gonna shock lila and you're gonna have daven in this shul, which is, the ceiling is only 7 feet, and you're gonna punch in your lila into the dach, and even a tiny drop of the blackness of the brown piece of the lila is gonna come down. That's already called niktan. In the first 2 days we have a problem. So therefore, sorry, nicht the first few days, all of the days. The Alter Rebbe says, interessant, but der Luch is the Alter Rebbe, as niktam on top of the lilith is a sai als chuz and a sai als huda, because it's on the top. People see it, so therefore, if you have a lilith and sliced off a tiny drop on top, it's going to be close to all 7 days. So therefore, once you have a lilith which has the tiny spitzlige brown things, it's very, very easy. Once you knock it in anywhere, it should fall down and you're going into serious problems. So therefore, once you have a lilith which is blatted on top, brown already, stay away from it because you're going to have problems. You want to add something?
Yeah, how many leaves do you need on the side?
You don't need, how big, how?
No, there's like leaves the whole way across.
Yeah.
How many? You said something about shear. What's the shear?
On this side, there's no shear.
So you need 3 leaves on the top?
The what?
You need 3 leaves
No,
on the
you
top?
have to have a little, it has to have kapas tamurim, has to be some kapas tamurim, but the zushka shear has to be 50 or has to be 70 or it has to be 30.
The half, do you need just the top leaf or do you need like a few?
The poskim reden nicht darum, als haben gesagt, as es soll, du siehst, du hast a shear, wie viel man darf, wie viel.
Just like there should be leaves.
It should be.
You can take out as much as you want to make those nuts.
Yes.
You can take them all out and have only 3 on the top.
That's this question.
Yeah.
That's this question.
Leave 2 on the side.
You don't want to come in with the ditch a little bit in shul. Yeah, Pashas, you have to push the Tafum Hashem Lilith.
Okay.
Allah heißt nicht Lilith.
Okay, another question. Is there a shear to the maximum like the lulav?
Maximum?
Yeah.
No. Shear ein Lilith. Also ich tue Alter Rebbe Shechnuch. Shear, you can have a Lilith which is as tall as the Empire State Building, and you can have an Esrik. What?
There really is
Oh, you have a problem with the bang the sukkah. So that's it. And you can have an Esrik, and you can have an Esrik which is as big as you want. Ein Lashir. Alter Rebbe said the shear, the katnas you have has to be 4 Tucham, and the Esrik has to be Kvaitze, but Lamalu ein Lem shear. So if you want to have the Yemenite have some kind of a soroga which they could have on take on the they have to carry it on top of. Okay, so that's the second Shiur. Okay, what else do we need to go? Okay, noch eine Sache. Another thing which we have a gewaltige Meile, the Alter Rebbe, some of my a postkam, which is tight, alucha, as Lila, which is kehemnik, is possible. Das steht in Shechanurach. Lila, that is kehemnik, is possible. What is pshat? Lila is kehemnik. It's a machlokes and Rishonim. Again, we come back to machlokes and Rishonim. Most of the Rishonim say that the lila which is like this, and you could find it a lot. A lila which is the 2 middle leaves go like this. It's like a Y, a V. It's like this. What does it mean? When you put it down on the table, it's still going to stay like this. When you have before I mentioned, you have a lilith which is open, it's kosher, yeah? It's no mitzvah and a mifcha. But that, it's not kehemnik, because when you put it down on the table, it's going to be closed. We are talking now, you can have a lot of a circle, which I saw already, which is like this. The middle of lilith goes like this. 1 to the right, 1 to the left. And according to most of the showing, I would say, it's possible. The Alter Rebbe is Lashitas Haravet, the Alter Rebbe passt in Zoy Lalucha, he doesn't mention the Zach, if for instance, the gewaltige man. Because one of the biggest problems, once upon a time, before we had the Liluchim, was Hemnek. Hemnek was a very common thing. But the Alter Rebbe said, no, no problem. This is not much Hemnek. What does it mean, Hemnek? The Shedra is broken in half, which you're not going to have such a little anyway. You're not going to find it. Nobody brings it in. So it has to, the Shedra itself is broken. It's like a Y. But if it's like this, there's no problem. Now again, as I mentioned before, If you have such a lulav, and you could find a different lulav, yes, you could take the other lulav, because a lot of Rishonim, and even maybe most Rishonim, which say that that's possible, why shouldn't it be Yoitza, a mitzvah that I said, also according to the other Rishonim. But Lalucha, in Zaman Einu Ne'eli Div Rabbi Sayin Nisi Aini, Al Rabbi Zoy Gefasken, Azuk Semitel Kitchila, so if you don't find anything else, you can take it, the Kitchila, make a bracha. So this is one of the things which is, although the Alter Rebbe most of the time he goes a machmer in Pesach, some kind here and there he throws in a atom bomb, some kind of killers, which is a machaya, and a Shabbos, and a spice, and some kind of killers, which is mamish gavaldik, and a safe klal Yisrael. That's the same thing with Hemnek. Hemnek, according to, again, if it's like this, according to most reports, all passings is possible, according to Alter Rebbe, it's kosher.
James?
Where?
James is going.
The teams. Everything when we speak about Silam is there has to be the teams. Because instead of the Ramu, alles is stored in the middle step. So therefore, if you have an essay like this, again, if you don't have anything else, you take it. If you have other things, you could, why shouldn't you be machmir? But it's not the guy again, if you take Korah, so then we don't have the problem. It's not Hemlik, because in the Tzvish they do Korah, so it's a Samachai. Naken, if it's Geboid. Stein Shechanurach, Esrik, which is Nakam, that means it's a Lilith. Lilith, which is Nakam, is it my Lilith? Nakam in English, no? It's crooked. A crooked Esrik, a crooked Lilith, if it's to the two sides, it's possible. If it's to the front, it's possible. If it's to the back, it's kosher. Why? Because that's the way how it works. That's the way how it goes. That's Heinrich side. But has to be crooked, kamagil. Anybody knows what a magil is? Sickle. Like a sickle. If you're going to find a lila which is like a sickle, then we're going to talk. We don't have the problem. All those who are Inyan, it should be straight, and we all know that the Rebbe, one of the Zachem said, Machmer gewähnt. That Machmer gewähnt, the first thing which you looked at a lila was, take the lila, you look at it should be straight. In the Gebal, the Rebbe, the Zohar-Yitin, darf man nicht Zohar-Yitin. Aber again, ich suche eigentlich die Haluchas. Der Wusste hat sich zu führen, haben wir uns immer nur Chabad, und someone weiß, was man zu sagen. Halucha-wise, if it's not like a sickle, you have no problem. If the shadow is crooked, then there's no difference anywhere. If it's front and back, then it's possible. But again, this kind of esrogin is not going to come to you. Love, yeah. In the last half an hour, whenever I said esrogin, okay. Now there's another thing which has a knop. A knop is, first of all, before let me just get out of the way. Sometimes you have the love which is zigzag. It's a kushel ketchil, it's no problem. So there's a Jew kind of halt is a problem. If you find such as a little, it's okay. A knop. What's a knop? A knop is a lot of times you see on top. The esrog is going to be geboiden on top. Which is angeboiden. It's like a hook. It's like a hook. Now, if most of the leuven blätter is geboiden, then it's a problem. It's nicht kushel. But if you don't have only on top a couple of leaves, which is going like this, the machlok is a Rishonim. Some Rishonim say it's possible. The Rosh says, not only it's kosher, I'm makba to have oyevani lekachas es lilof gezeh, ich hab es lieb zu nehmen. And the reason why you like, because then not most of them, when it has a knop, it's always closed. It's always samach. So that's why the Rosh says, I like it, it's kosher, and I'm using it. But according to most other poskim, the Rishonim halt as is possible. So therefore, we steigen heute zum Rugi Chabad, ein Lokchem, ne Luvam, das steht zwei Framen Luvam, ein Lokchem, ne Luvam, sheyesh lehem knop. This steigen shit. Why? Because Alter Rebbe Paschals, a little which has a knop is possible. Some people, I think, envision it, they're makful to have only Luvam which has a knop. Okay, they have a Rosh. But a Kapurim, in sommer, Alter Rebbe halt this is a Pusel, like goes Chalik from Bel, nehmt us a Pusel, so therefore, we don't take this kind of esrogin. Yeah. What else do we need to mention? Okay, so let's a tiny drop. Time is getting out. A hudas and arubas, which is much easier. Because lately it became some kind of ma'aranam. I always say, mind you if there's any coiling out here. I don't mind it. I don't mean them. I only mean other coiling out. I always say, when I went into Koilin, I started in Hilchot Shabbos, the first month, I saw and found Klal Yisrael with at least 80 things which are Mechal Shabbos. 80 things. And I was ready to write a whole Chibur Klal Yisrael and Mechal Shabbos. Once I finished Hilchot Shabbos, I saw Ich bin gewinn am Moritz, and Klal Yisrael know exactly what they do. They know what they do. Klal Yisrael weiß nicht. So always a Koilin man, when there's a balagan, nishtut, of anything it should be, first look from where it comes. If it's from a Koilin man, 90% or 99% is a Dreitakot. If it's not a Koilin man, then you have to start looking in. So I don't want to make Koilin man because I was a Koilin man, but at least I want you to get the concept. Why do I say it? Because now on the street is a balagan on two things. First of all, I'll take it which much easier, is the aruvas. Dort not schungen at Yisroel, and by the way, one of Liubavitch Ruven at Yisroel, doch ungeheben, weißt, hat sich ziemlich gehabt mit sie, aber alle haben das allein gemacht, auf Treis Aruvas. What do they say, Treis Aruvas? American Aruvas. American Aruvas. Shotze Aruvas? Nein, a viele Shotze Aruvas. A viele Shotze Aruvas. They say, I'm a kick around the Shechanurah, Zeitman, they have a problem with the Lilith. The Shechanurah Shtai, the Lilith has to be oval and not round. Es schon sich weg auf Kleinigkeiten, was ist schon, aber mir gefällt man, die Ike Chab ist mir gefallen. It says like this. Shechanurah Shtai, die Frage steht auf Zeichen Aruvah, Mahadran change the Haruvas every day. So if you buy it, it's all Haruvas, you have to change it every day. Because it gets dry and it falls, if you ever saw Aruvas at Yisroel, it like falls down. So he says, if our Aruvas doesn't fall down, you don't have to change it, you have all 7 days which is fresh. So that's not Aruvas, it's a puzzle. That's one of the Nemikim. Guess it's pushed on the problems. You what? So according to them, what ich gedacht so, davon passen alle der Lüge machen. Because Amul Alillah, but that dort nach Fisch schwitzt. They have no. But the tendency is Shechanurah Shtai how a Aruvah has to be. The shape of the Aruvah, the leaves, the color of the shtekela has to be red, and all of our Aruvas fit the criteria of Aruvas. So therefore everything is fine. Desas Haltzich Besser is again the same way as they worked on the very Luvim, which should become a better Gidul. They worked on the Aruvah, should become a better Gidul. That's not a Cheshul. That's number one. Number two, even our Aruvas, if you have a Lilith, it is exposed all day, it's going to be dry 2 days. Our Luvim, why does it last? Or because you keep it in water, or because you have a towel around it, or you have it in a vacuum pack. Ziploc leluvim halter. So that keeps it fresh. But if you have a aruvas, in 2 days it's going to be. So therefore, all the shotza aruvas, monsi aruvas, then the kusha, the kitchila, and you don't have to, import from Yisroel their aruvas. Same thing is about Hadassah. Hadassah is stein shechnur chazoi. So sagen Hudas a shoyte. Hudas shoyte. What is Hudas shoyte? Shechnur Shtai, Hudas has to have 3 leaves coming out from the same Beshuvah. What is Hudas shoyte? Hudas shoyte means you have 2, and 1 is lower, and 1 is on top. Some achroikser shoyte, if no lamal or lamatu, instant maroon beide. If it's high, the third one is higher or lower, it's Hudas shoyte, and it's post. It's post. Now, if you're going to take our Hadassah, and you're going to look good, if you're going to take what is it called, a leveler, it might not be 100% straight on the same level, It's not level from the bed. So this is a problem, you have to sit. And one of the guys, which were more other things, says, Erev Sikas, the hardest thing of the Dalamir is Hadassah. The hardest thing is Hadassah. Erev Sikas, all they have is not looking at Hadassah. Why? Because the Mugalein has to be B'shuv right with an inch meter. If you look at it and it's 3 coming out from the B'shuv, even though it's a tiny, a little bit up, a little bit down, that's fine. What does the Shechanurah say? Who the Shur is usually you can see it. Erev Shabbos, I don't know in which mikveh you go, but in the bigger mikvahs over here in Muncie, they sell flowers. and they also sell Hadassah. Every week you buy a Hadassah. We know the Gemara Masechta Shabbos, that Shimon by Yechui, we saw 2 Yidden running with Hadassah. So therefore, so there are some people which are not with every Erev Shabbos to buy Hadassah, and therefore the flour producers, they also bring, you could buy Hadassah. So if you take the Hadassah, over there you could see 2, and one is, a quarter of an inch lower, a quarter of an inch high. That could be a Shalach who does show you. But all the Hadassah which we have in the Fat today's day, when it's packaged, and you have more roots we went through, you don't have to break your heart, and your mind, and your time, and your shalom bayis, and all the other rest of things.
That was more expensive. What's for more hidden?
More hidden is only Chazanish or Rebbe. Shit is Chazanish. A hood, as I mentioned before, a little has to be 4 tfuchim, the shedra. A haudas and a ruva has to be 3 tfuchim. How much is 3 tfuchim? How much is the famous machlokas? Zwischen Rebbe and Chazanish, how it's about 12 inches, and Rebbe it's a little bit less than 10 inches. Now, a lot of people are machmar, everything when it comes to the rices, you should go with the Chazanish. Also steht nicht, der Brier, ein anderer Postke, since wir reden von der Schale von der Reise, you can be a machmar. Okay, if you have this Kabbalah that you want to be machmar the rices, lauf after. Jetzt haben wir nicht umgenommen, ins Paske, auf der Shabbos, Paske mit Alteredens Mann, ins Genemische Ungemeinde Tam. Vieles ist an der Reise.
Or... Schöne Mikve, der Rebbe Shabbos nach, mit der Shiur und das Lachschiur.
Ja. Emas. Aber Mikve steht, aber so Jöjts sind alle Chemien, aber Mikve steht Afka, wie haben sie gemacht auf alle, das ist extra Ding. So nochmal, sie sagt, wir haben Friede Mann. Man tut am Mitte der Reise, wir jetzt alle Schieten, is a good thing. As I mentioned before, like a green in the Twitter. Now, יש מוקה mit dem, der Schwierig sucht, als bei der Reise soll man nehmen da. Aber manche suchen so, insofern mal wissen, unser Schied ist der Bechaim Schied. Es ist nicht im Schatz, der Bechaim und Bechadisch gewesen. Der Chaz nicht was der Bechadisch. That was the standard Schied. Der Bechaim Schied is the standard Schied. Chaz nicht was der Bechadisch. But again, es ist nicht, es ist Bechir Kiddisch. Es ist nur die Bide, es lach. So if people want to be machmar according to that Schied, so therefore, when you buy, which if it's Meshilish, according to the Chazanishi, it's more expensive. If it's Meshilish only, according to the Chaim Nushi, it's more cheaper. That's the only chimik between these things. Of other places, it's a Eidachreides, it's a Rabbanut. It's a Shem political. A Kapuna, so, what? Of course. But how much is, no, Meshilish. We have to do Meshilish, yeah. It could be 3 feet. But if it's not Meshilish, then you have a problem. It has to be Meshilish. If it was Meshilish and it fell down leaves, you should do a ganz Ruch, as Rish is gefährlich. Aber a Kapurim weiß ich, when a person wants to buy a das and a Ruch, wants to be
in the second day Yom a few of the leaves.
Oh, das steht nicht Ruch, als wenn sich wuss. Es ist geblieben, Riboy, rauf in der 3 Tfuchen, geblieben nach Meshilish, das ist Kusche. Ja, oder auf vieles ist gefallen, 2, von alle ist gefallen, noch 2, ist auch Kusche. Aber most of the time, fallen Struppe so viel auf das Nachpusten. Aber selber darf da gemacht werden. In some Roch ist der Problem, but the Polish Welt so Kaischler, so they stick daran, sagen wir Kaischler, so therefore you could tear off a lot of the leaves and then you have a problem. Yeah.
What's the criteria to replace the Hadassah? I know they put a lot of things.
To replace it by the middle of Yom Tov?
Yeah.
Only when it started getting dry or the Soviet.
How many leaves do you have to have left? More color?
Rabbis, you mean?
No, rough of the three from the top.
I'm talking about rabbis.
Oh, what you want is gets dry.
What about if there's 2 black leaves at the top? That's okay?
2 black leaves on the top?
Yeah.
Black leaves are not, yeah. Mikradin is nicht, das nicht.
Oh, nice.
Aber when it gets dried out already,
yeah.
Get that dried out already, then it's shampoo.
Change every day.
Aber the shine einfach noch genug. Also if we can't change every day.
No, I can make it to the end of Yom Tov with 2 black leaves at the top. Everything else I don't know about.
Yeah, but again, you have to touch it. If it's not,
it's dry. It's wet.
Then was ich gebracht. Aber von anderen Seite, war in einer Bitsman. That if you could change it, and the minute is that focus once during the Yom Tov. I think you don't like this.
You mentioned you changed one.
This minute you don't like.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, the minute is that at least once during the Yom Tov you should change your
I should buy an extra set.
You should buy exercise. You could buy it anyway. All Yom Tov you could buy exercise. But if it happens, I'll give you a secret. Then you could buy a Ruvas, a Shanas.
Yeah.
So you get 5 cheap price, and you can sell it for another guy who also needs the Ruvas. Then
if you have a Hadas that started going out little side Hadas, you can see that they cut it off. Is that okay?
What?
A Hadas, right?
Yeah.
It's one branch, right?
Yeah,
it's not nothing to the side.
Yeah.
But you can see sometimes that it started growing out to the sides, small branches, and they cut it off.
Okay. Half the sheet?
Yeah.
No problem. You could cut it yourself. You have a longer?
No, like a little branch to the side, the same. It doesn't have to be like a shedder or something.
Has a shed. Has
No,
a
but it started sidely.
Good.
Like side little branches.
No. Okay, so this is basically more or less the kids which we have to know. But again, nikdam, if anything of the hadasim of the ruvas which is cut off, so then you have a problem. So therefore, always you have to check on the tops. The top has to be, and it should be dry, should be cut off, and then...
What about lavlov? On the ruvas, sometimes you have a lavlov, you know, the leaves on top? Is there any hinder in that?
The brisk is in the machman on that.
Ruvas of Shashan.
Ruvas.
Maakt een
Ruvas ook. The brisk is in the machman, yeah. Okay, the Reich should help from us in some room, Allah ksivach sim toivin, I give a shiur, shun toivin, and we should easy find the almino. From the room, kusher yonta.